I like to talk about this Coach's Corner because to me, it helps people to understand, particularly me to understand, the difference between honesty for the sake of honesty and honesty that actually helps to promote really healthy relationships. So, for example, someone could come up to me and say, how do you like my hair? And you could be really honest and say exactly how you feel. It makes me want to puke or something like that. That is not helping relationships, nor is that not honesty necessary, and is certainly not kind. So one of the things that you could do to double check whether your honesty is fitting what you really want is to ask yourself a simple question. Is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it kind? Is it appropriately timed? Someone comes up to me and says, Instructor Chris, your zipper is down and you're speaking to a whole bunch of people and stuff like that. And maybe that's a good time for me to get my zipper up instead of, potentially worrying about that throughout the whole talk. However, if someone came up to me with timing and maybe did that before I got out in front of a camera or something, that would be better timing. So timing is important, all right? When you're a really good friend, you're usually very honest with your friends, all right? So, for example, if they're interrupting all the time, if they have horrible breath, if their body odor is offensive, you telling them that is not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. It's how you do it. Can you do it in a way that shows them respect, that helps them to feel still good about themselves, and you're not embarrassing them in front of others? So that's where those three kind of guideline questions come in. I'm about to be honest with Instructor Brad, let's say, and tell him that there's food on his face and before he goes out to teach. And I think about, is this good timing? Yes, it's not interrupting him. It's not embarrassing him. Is it necessary? Well, yeah, it's kind of a necessary thing to help him out. And is it kind? Well, it's how I present it to him that makes it kind. So going up and saying, hey, buddy, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you got some chocolate on your face, you got some food on your face. We've often been taught from little kids up to adults that honesty is always the best policy. That's an absolute statement which we know doesn't always ring true. There's many people throughout history who have been dishonest in a very powerful and loving way to protect other people. Often even children are asked to not tell the truth when a stranger calls at the door or on the phone and asks if your parents are home. And instead of saying, no, my parents are away, which may make you vulnerable to future attacks or something, you might say, oh no, my parents are here, but they're not able to come to the phone right now. So it is, we often would call that a white lie. In other words, it's a lie, but it's supposed to be harmless. I don't know if that's a good term, but it's just a common term. What I would just say is that we're actually lying, but we're lying intentionally. We're aware of what we're saying. We're not doing it because we're trying to be self-serving. We're actually doing it to protect either ourselves or others. Right? I think of the most obvious example for me would be, let's say, back in 1939, when Jewish people are being gathered up against their will and shipped off to concentration camps and eliminated, genocide. And people were actually putting their lives at risk and lying on a regular basis with their behavior as well as with their words to hide families in their attic or in their basement to keep them alive. So lying isn't always wrong, but when lying is self-serving, when it's stopping you from taking responsibility for something that would actually help you to grow and become a more mature individual, yeah, then lying is not healthy. So the example that I use is a true story of when I was 7 years old and visiting my Uncle Rob out on the West Coast. He was a pilot. He was this huge guy. He was like 6'5", deep, deep voice. And to me, he was like a giant. I was outside his house, which was like a little acreage, had lots of crabapple trees, and I'm playing with his son, and we're throwing crabapples back and forth at each other, catching them. When I happened to throw one too high for him, kind of trying to make it too high for him, and he jumps up in the air and misses catching it, and behind him is a house, and the crabapple hits the window and cracks the window. And I'm right away going, oh, I'm going to get into trouble. It's probably going to be Uncle Rob, and I'm scared of him. So that was my excuse to go ahead and lie. And when he came out and said, who broke the window? his son didn't throw me underneath the bus. He didn't point at me. His son just said nothing, kind of leaving it up for me to be able to take that next step of courage and tell the truth. But I didn't. I took the coward's way and I lied. I said, I don't know. I don't know who broke the window. I clearly know that he knew that I broke the window. You could see it in his face. You could see the disappointment that I had lied. He didn't call me on it. He just went, okay. And for weeks, months, and even years after that, I would remember that and feel ashamed and embarrassed about my behavior. And it led me to really think about it and to try and not ever do that again. I don't know if I was totally successful as a kid. I'm sure I made some lies after that. It's a process, but I was becoming more and more aware that I valued me being an honest person. I hope that these Coaches Corners are coming across okay and clear. We thank you for your participation. We wish you a very safe and awesome weekend. Namaste.